Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Big Mike here. Hey, it's Monday, March 31st, and I'm glad you guys could make it. Some administration stuff. Um, I did pin the link at the top if you want to come up. Got something on your mind? What kind of coffee you're drinking? Whatever it is, you can come on up here and we can talk about anything and everything. Now, I will tell you that on the last video that we did of Morning Talk with Mike, we lost 3 subscribers on that. And I will just tell you that my thoughts are my thoughts. Okay. The great thing is that we can agree to disagree. But if you're feeling strongly that, hey, I don't think the same way as Big Mike, and you got to leave, then you got to leave. I understand that. But my thoughts are my thoughts, and I'm not going to deviate for that just to please certain people. But that's a great thing about living in America. And that's the great thing all these service members all around the world, so that we can speak our minds. The only problem is sometimes people don't talk in an adult manner, if you will. They just angry, and it's sad. Yeah, I was upset for the last 4 years. I'm not going to hide that. America was going into the crapper. Everything was going woke. Inflation went skyrocketing. Interest on your home skyrocketed while the price went up and your taxes went up. And I lived through it. I'm still alive. So, sometimes we just got to talk without getting angry. You can get passionate, and that's fine. But if you feel that what I believe is not what you believe, and you have to leave because your brain just can't handle the truth or my thoughts, then I understand that, and that's perfectly fine. But anyway, guys, I had to get that out of the way because that was showing a trend that some people just don't like the way Big Mike thinks. But hey, that's why you got to vote, right? So anyway, hey, we got some people in here. We had a lot of our Filipino friends from India and around the world came in early because it's getting bedtime over there because they're like 14 hours ahead of us or whatever. Our friends down in Australia came in and said hello. But guys, I'm going to tell you, been a busy week. I want to say hello to Rebecca Touch by Yarn. There's Tamara over at Heartland Headquarters. Welcome in. There's Wendy. Hey, Wendy's here from Hardneck Farms. I have to break out that red T-shirt I got from you and wear it on one of the morning shows and stuff. But this episode of Morning Talk with Mike is brought to you by Cold Beer Ranch. I busted out my cold beer merch. Show him some love. Yeah, he hasn't put out a video in a while. He's pretty dang busy guy right now, and YouTube has had to take a second chair, but they're doing great over there. In fact, he came out with a new line of seasoning, and he did a little short on it. So go over to Cold Beer Ranch and check out that short. Terry ordered a couple of containers of his barbecue rub, and it's really good. She put it on some ribs, and man, it'll fire you up too. So check that out. So let's see. There's Abby G. Hello, Abby. Paul Honeyman from England. There he is. with his bright, sunshiny face. Uh, there's Ebby. How are you doing? At home with Tom and Rhonda. Saying good morning to everybody here, fellow patriots. AK Bill's here from Alaska. Sorry, Big Mike, I didn't mean to offend anyone with my sense of humor. It wasn't you, bro. It was me. Hey, if you can't speak the truth, then just shut up. So anyway, again, the link's at the top if you want to come up and talk about anything. I want to talk to Johnny. I want to get all the lowdown on the 10 Killer meetup. Just another platform for him to get that information out. Yep, Wendy says, I speak my mind freely. That's right. You got to. Don't lie. Don't be fake in front of other people just to get along with them. Just speak your mind. The chips will fall wherever they may, and you'll be fine. Arnak, Gillums, everybody's saying hello to everybody. It's good to see you guys. Hey, Sherry Fillmore, welcome in. Rhonda Dotson's here. O'Rourke's Littlefield's here, saying hello. Troy Sutton's here. How are you doing, Troy? Karen Brest is here. Now, Karen said on a comment, we just put out a video, okay? Put out a video on the birds. And I think Terry did a very good job on the thumbnail. And I asked everybody what they thought of me growing this hillbilly beard I'm doing right here. I don't know what it is. I can grow hair for days right here, but this side's taking a little bit longer. I have trimmed it up just so it starts blending in with the front, the goat. And so she said, get rid of it. Thank you for your honesty, Karen. But Annie Ann says she loves it. So I'm torn. Terry doesn't like it at all. But anyway, hey, Arlene, how are you doing? Yeah, Terry don't like it at all. AK Bill says, if I spoke my mind freely, I wouldn't have any friends. Sure you would. Yeah, you would. You'd still have friends. But hey, I'm going to tell you something. I got to bring my notes up, okay? And because I didn't want to miss some stuff. If you are looking for a state that has no income tax, right? You need to go to Mississippi. Mississippi House, Senate, and the governor just signed into law no income tax in the state of Mississippi the other day. That brings that to 10 states. 10 states. Well, let me get both hands up. 10 states with no income tax. Okay. So the governor said this will reduce state income from taxes by $2.2 billion. Okay. And they join the other 9 states, Alaska, Washington, Nevada, Wyoming, South Dakota, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, and New Hampshire as states having no state income tax. So then people go, well, they're going to lose $2.2 billion. How are they going to make it up? Well, when they do that, And then with that comes the corporate tax. Companies, and they have already got companies lined up to move into the state that will make up for that. And right now, they have $2.7 billion worth of new industry coming into the state of Mississippi, which prompted them, they've been wanting to do this for a while, which prompted them to cut the income tax in the state. Now, Florida's taking it to another level. Florida found almost $1 trillion in waste. And now they want to end property tax in the state of Florida. Guys, that's huge. What they make in taxes from companies, because they're corporate, they still have a tax on corporate and stuff like that. Disney pays more in Florida in taxes than we spend on the Department of Defense. That's just Disney, Universal, all that stuff. So tourism is paying for the whole state. And now they're saying, hey, we have such a surplus that we're going to end property tax. What does that do? That brings more people to Florida. Okay. More people to Florida, companies into Florida, because they still have to pay that operating tax for entertainment and all that kind of stuff. But what a place to live. Now, I wouldn't live in Florida. Florida is a great state to go visit, but I don't want to live there. They get the chance of your house getting damaged from a hurricane every single year is higher than getting hit with a tornado here in Oklahoma. So, hey, there's Johnny. There, look at him.
I was just letting you talk. I was just
yeah. So, what's going on over there at Gillum Farms?
Oh, you going early. It kind of.
You haven't even got your voice right.
I wasn't ready. I was like, man, there's Mike right there. And then you called me out and stuff like that. Said, hey, I'd like you to come up and talk about Teen Killer and stuff.
Well, you did notice the thumbnail. I was wearing a Gillum Farm shirt.
I saw that. You can't
get away from the Gillum Farm shirts, guys, because their 4X is a 4X. And both of my shirts is softer and all get out. So I got Danny. I parade him around and promote him because there's a lot of bull that goes on over at your channel.
Yeah, a lot of bull.
And I say that in a funny manner. Whole lot of bull.
But anyway, you were asking about the Teen Killer meetup.
Yeah.
Teen Killer meetup is April 25th, 26th, 27th. And it's going to be at, of course, Cherokee Landing State Park in the Creek Shelter, which is the same place where you had Mid-America YouTube meetup. Whenever we came onto the scene, whenever everybody finally figured out who we were, and we figured out who everybody else was, because we didn't know anybody whenever we came to that. And it's going to be we're going to do breakfast on Saturday and Sunday, and we're going to have a potluck on Saturday evening, Saturday afternoon, late afternoon. And we're going to go out and eat for those folks who show up on Thursday, because a lot of people show up on Thursday to these things. Yeah. They set up their campers and, kind of. So we're going to go eat on Thursday evening, and then on Friday evening, we're also all going to get together and go eat. So, or you can eat on your own. I mean, it's up to you. People want to stay in, but we're going to get a group of us together and we're going to go eat.
Yeah.
We're going to have a smaller giveaway. It's not going to be huge by no means. And we're going to do, that's going to be on Saturday, right at like 1 o'clock, I think, or something like that. And then we're going to do, and we're going to have a kids giveaway. So every child who shows up, is going to end up with something. They're going to end up with something because last year was the first time we ever did it. We had a lot of kids there, and we gave away as much stuff as I think we had one or two that didn't get something.
Yeah.
And so we decided to make sure that we're going to make that, there's going to be plenty. They'll probably get 2 or 3 somethings the way it's looking. So, yeah, it's going to be really laid back. We're going to try to focus it more like Pinecone Fest was. And if anybody's ever been to Pinecone Fest, how that one lays out. It's really laid back, and we like the laid back atmosphere of that. And hopefully this year we don't get blown away.
It did rain pretty dang hard, didn't it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. We were, people in campers and stuff like that, like me, I barely even knew anything was going on, but people in tents and stuff like that were, we had some, I guess there was some stuff that I didn't even realize it, but over there by Jason and Tara, they had not theirs, but their neighbor right there. I think Barnuminium, or what's that channel called now?
Oh no, that's Tilted K was right.
No, not Tilted K.
Oh no, that one that was over there. Yeah, they got hammered.
Yeah, they just packed up and left.
Yeah.
And because it flooded, their shelter, all their stuff, caught too much water and stuff like that. But we want to invite everybody that wants to come. Now we're going to be at Mid America too, because we've already got our spot. I like to joke with people and tell them that the way I'm going to find our spot is I'm going to drive around till I find the Lazy Mobile, which is Jesse and Lisa, because I know our spot's right next to theirs.
Yeah.
And I know they'll be there before we are.
Because they're driving farther.
Yeah. I think they might roll in a little earlier than we do. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, and I guess I don't know if you know about it or not or anything like that, but I've been doing a few lives on YouTube for fun and profit, and trying to help folks with the profit side of YouTube.
Right.
And that seems to be going really well. Had some folks popped up last time celebrating farm life. They said they took a few of my recommendations. They used them on their very next video, and it's tracking better than any video they've ever put out.
Right.
So they're excited about that. Some other folks are looking into that, and it's one of those things where I wish somebody had done this with us when we came into it, because it seems like everybody just kind of held everything in. And never really explained, like how to get your search engine optimization going, how to have that all, working for you, how to, what your creator, where that, once you get a video, once somebody watches your video, how many times will you be next in queue for recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. And you can find all that in the analytics.
Right.
On like TubeBuddy and stuff like that. So I was just trying to explain to people how that all works, how to create a thumbnail, that's going to be grabby enough, et cetera, et cetera. So
Sure.
I'm excited about that. We're going to continue on with some of that, and
Yeah, I
so
think a lot of people, and I don't know why, um, we have this tendency. We like to shout out a lot of as many people as we can, put them on
mhm,
thumbnails, do all this kind of stuff, and people got to realize to grow a community, you can't just hold everything in. You need to share the love, share the information, help other channels out, because when you do that, then basically you're building a more loyal subscriber base, a more loyal family,
mhm.
knowing that you're going to tell them the truth. They can come to you when they can drop you a message, and the key is to answer the email, right?
Yeah,
And do those things for others, because trust me, you're going to be blessed back a hundredfold. And I think that a lot of channels hold back that information when they should be releasing that information to other people. And
absolutely.
we
Because
watch you religiously, and we watch the new segment that you're putting together. And I'm going to tell you something. We had to learn all that stuff on our own. Now we did reach out to people like Mel and Gary over at 41.36 when we first started, and they had a lot of good information. But what you're putting out is something that people can go back to instead of having a conversation. They can say, well, what did it, wait a minute. And they go back and they watch it again. They said, oh, okay.
right,
Because you need that point of reference.
right.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that.
Well, it's just something that was on my heart. I talked to Christine about it. She said you should do it. Um, and I thought, well, I really don't want to. I don't want to offend anybody by any means. I just want to make sure that at least the basics are out there and they know how YouTube kind of works. And the best way I've been able to explain it is you're a tiny planet. Okay, you have your own planet. Your channel is your tiny planet. You're trying to get your planet next to a universe that actually, are people who want to watch the type of content that you put out.
Sure.
And so as you put things out, you might move, closer and closer to that universe. And then sometimes whenever you put something different out, it moves you a little bit farther away
Right.
because it's outside the niche and stuff like that. So I've had to learn that the hard way. That's the reason why we started another channel, is because there's a lot of stuff that I love to do. It's just that whenever I put it on Gillum Farms, it really doesn't do well.
Right.
And so I'm going to do it. I'll put it on something else. Eventually that channel will take off and do something. But I'm just trying to grow, I'm growing everything naturally. So I just let it go as it will, and then we'll just, see where it turns up. But there are creative things that I love to do that just don't work with Gillum Farms.
Right.
And you probably run into the same thing, creative things that you really want to do, but if you put it on your channel, it it doesn't necessarily roll.
Yeah.
And so that's my release for that creative side.
Yeah, the hard lesson that we learned, I mean, our videos they're doing okay. But then you can go back, and we did get hammered by YouTube on a video. I think it only got like 600 and something views on it. But we did get a message from YouTube saying that they were not going to put it in any kind of rotation, no recommendations, no nothing, because I had said something about the election and the inauguration, and stuff like that in a video that, what we were going to do and stuff like that. And it said that I was politically influencing people, and wham.
Oh,
And
wow.
that once it got to a certain point and it died
Yeah.
and it didn't go anywhere.
Right.
So people were still fighting the political police. So just be mindful of that. Be generic when you
Yeah.
do that, because sometimes I can't shut my mouth about certain things. And that's my pill to swallow. But again, helping other channels, learning from other people's mistakes, and channels being willing to help other people. Now, Terrie helps a lot of channels. Hey, how do you make these thumbnails? And what do you do? And, we use a program called Canva.
Yeah, that's what we use.
And I'm going to tell you something. Yes, a lot of channels don't want to spend money and stuff like that. They just go, I just want to put out what I want to put out. And, nobody can tell. But then you start looking around and you see people who have their channel, then they have a talk channel explaining their channel or the video or whatever, or they just do a daily thing. And if you look at them, you don't see the growth like the other one, but you're still growing because some people like to hear you jibber jabber on all day long. And then some people want to see you swing a freaking hammer.
Yeah.
That's just the truth.
Right.
So yeah, I get that point. On your channel, they want to see farming. They want to see cattle. They want to see anything that has to do with, showing or exposing what you do on a daily basis. And then you've got your fun channel.
Yeah.
Okay. Those
Exactly.
things put years onto your life: car racing, working on cars, hunting, fishing, those kind of outdoor things that you like to do. And then you see it's a different following. I mean, some people split back and forth, but you can see the following on this one compared to this one.
Right. Exactly.
And people got to learn that. That's something people just have to come to Jesus on and try to separate those things. A lot more work, as you're finding out.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard work just to support your channel, and
Yeah.
now you've got a second channel that you got to divvy it out.
Well, the way it works with me, I don't, I'm not religious about whenever I put out a video on the other channel or anything like that. I do everything wrong to grow a channel. I
Sure.
don't, but on the Gillum Farms channel, I'm religious on that one. There's certain days that I put a video out. I put them out at a certain time. I put them, I really have been intentional with that one, and it's really paying off. I mean, YouTube has actually become profitable at this point.
Right.
And so, we're not, even though I go and do things a lot on my channel and I spend money while I'm doing them, and people see me spend money on, while I'm out doing things, like on the auctions and stuff like that. I go to a lot of auctions and I spend money, but I can assure you that YouTube is profitable enough to where whatever I spend at the auction, I've made it. I mean, the money has come back. So, so it's helpful, and I want everybody to have that. I want them to have fun, and and if they want to, because not everybody wants to. I've already run into this. Not everybody wants to ever earn a dime from YouTube. But if you do, then, you can still have fun with your channel. And you can also, if you need a new GoPro or something like that, you can go buy one with what YouTube paid you and stuff. So just saying. And that's what I was trying to get out to people, and they're getting excited about it, and I'm excited to talk about it. Hey, Tim. I see Tim out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and I want to get back to, and while you're up here, the top story that's just flooding the internet or the interwebs is the 7.7 magnitude earthquake over in Burma.
Saw that.
I mean, that thing was so devastating. If you watch the videos and the news on YouTube and stuff like that. Now, mind you, in Burma, one of the oldest countries in the world, houses that are older than America has been America, just crumbled. Everything just crumbled.
Right.
Because that plate shifted and it just devastated. And I think they're up over 1,600 people dead.
Yeah.
In that small Asian country. I think, wasn't Burma Siam at one time?
It's Myanmar now.
Myanmar now. But yeah, I mean, you got to realize something. You remember back when we were younger, they had that movie, The King of Siam, and depicting the country of Siam and Burma and Myanmar. They've changed their name several times. That is an ancient culture that's been around forever. And yeah, it devastated. I mean, they were digging in one video and you could hear somebody screaming under the rubble. So yeah, it was, it's probably higher now that they've started to clean up.
I'm sure.
So that was devastating could you imagine 1,600 people dying in an earthquake in the States? That would be insane. I mean, it would have to be in a place like a large metropolitan area to get those kind of numbers. But when you go to Asia, everybody just lives on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
You might own a house and then there's a house on top of you. And then someone builds a house right behind you on a hill and everything just came crushing down. And then the devastating aftershocks in other countries through that region, they were building a building in Thailand and off the river. And Terry and I, we took a river cruise in Thailand and we're looking at these buildings. I said, why are they're building a building that goes up and then they go over to the side and then they go to the other side and there's a gap in there, like they're a kid building building blocks.
Yeah.
Or, the Chinese takeout boxes, they build a building that looks like stacks of Chinese takeout boxes. That's building 101 in what was that at? Bangkok?
Yeah, Bangkok.
And
actually Thailand was Siam.
In Thailand. Okay. It's crazy. And we went down that river. I mean, it's some of the oldest and beautiful palaces and all that stuff. And I said, man. And I told her, I said, could you imagine if this place got rocked by an earthquake? And it happened. And we're talking, 2017 we were in Thailand? And I said that way back then, and they were building a building and they were at the height and that whole thing came crashing down.
Yeah.
So and that's just because of the shift in the ground.
I watched that one building. I mean, that thing just turned to dust in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, just literally just turned to, if anybody was in that building, there was no hope. I mean,
there was like 100 and something workers that perished in that thing.
It was there and then it was just dust. I mean, before it even hit the ground, it was obliterated. It was done.
Yeah.
And all the pool, you could see the hotels that had the pools and stuff on them, and all the water was just rolling over the sides of those
Yeah.
hotels. And, you know, it was a bad deal. And
Yeah. So what happens when you don't have building codes?
yeah.
And
Well,
we're
I've thought about that. I've seen those, movies where they've got all these houses and they're just, like you said, they're just stacked all over. And people, like they'll have a chase scene through this, in a movie, and they'll just be running through house to house to house to, just running through them and stuff. And you think, what happens if a fire ever breaks out over there?
Yeah.
I mean, it just would take the whole, because it doesn't look like they have a real good infrastructure for fire. So,
Yeah. And that's what scared me when we lived in Korea. For the 5 years we lived in Korea, they don't build out.
Hey, Jimmy.
They only build out when they have no other option than going up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it is just, and then when you're up in these apartments and you're on the 26, 30 stories up, and you can be in your house and you go, whoa, and the wind's blowing. Could you imagine the wind that we get in Oklahoma? And you can actually feel the building, but they build them that way to take that, the way they build them over there. But they build up, and if something ever happened, like for us, the elevator going out,
yeah,
and you live up there, and you don't know, you just come back from the store, got all your groceries, you're going to have to make several trips, because we had to live in an apartment complex there. People just, if you live in a house, that's very rare.
Unless you're in Camp Humphreys.
Yeah, if you're out in the country and stuff like that. But we were in the heart of Daegu, and you're talking 4.5 million people in a city. And I only worked. If you walk to work, you could get to work in about 15 minutes. If you drive to work, then it takes you an hour, 45 minutes if you leave when everybody wakes up and hell starts breaking loose with vehicles. And that's bad. I mean, there are times that we went from Camp Casey, Korea. We were going down to Seoul to the military hospital. And as the crow flies, it's only 24 miles. And it takes you 3 hours to get there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, because Seoul has 25 million people.
Wow.
And everybody has 2 cars.
Everybody has 2 cars and 25 million people.
And they have such the most outstanding public transportation, and you still have that much traffic.
Mm.
I love the public transport.
I figured there'd
Terrie
be a lot
loves
of
it. That's all she did. She loved taking. I mean, once you learn the language and you can interpret because most Asian countries like Japan, everything's in English and in Japanese. In Thailand, not Thailand, but Taiwan, everything was in their Chinese language and in English. Hong Kong the same way, because of the British influence over that sector and stuff like that. They just kept it.
Right.
But Korea, it is Korean. Even though they have 44,000 soldiers and they've had them there for 50 plus 60 years, they just don't do it.
No, there was some English, but it was bad.
Yeah, it was bad English.
Bad English.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we had to deal with. But it is just watching. It's kind of scary when you come from the States and you're not used to living like that. Now, I guess if you came from New York or some big metropolitan area where everybody lives in buildings and stuff like that, apartments and stuff, it might not be. But for me, it was like going, man, this is like claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Because you look out your window and there's a building right next to you. across the street, and that's who you see the whole time you live there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. It ain't happening for Gillen Farms, Johnny. Yeah, I'm not going over there because I can't really stand being. I went to Dallas to try to pick up Christine, from the airport to take to Pinecone Fest because
she had a goat rope over there. Jesus.
She was flying in, to Dallas, and then I was going to pick her up, and we were going to go on over to Pinecone Fest. She was coming back from South Dakota, and I parked in the parking lot there. I mean, I know what you're talking about is a magnitude, like hundreds of times worse. But I pulled in the parking lot and parked at the end of the lot because I have that dually truck, right? So I parked on the end one. It was the only one that I knew I could get out of because it's right next to the exit. So there's a parking space and then there's the exit to get out of there. And I'm like, well, I'll just be able to ride on out and go over there and get her at the airport because I got a hotel and I was near the airport. And so anyway, somebody came along and parked beside me right on the other side in the exit, and I couldn't cut the truck enough to get out. Christine had to get a cab to get to the hotel, and then we had to wait until this car finally left before we could, do anything.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just Dallas. But if you think about a city like what you're talking about, I don't know how people even function or
well, because they were born in that situation. That's why. I mean, when you're born into it, and I get it, there's like you say, why do people continuously struggle and suffer in a city like New York? Okay, why don't you just move out? Well, that's kind of like telling a drug addict, why don't you just stop taking drugs? They were born into this lifestyle. They don't know anything else but that. And the scariest thing to them most likely would be going from there out and live in the country. You know what I mean? Just like somebody in the country, you say, okay, we're going to give you this job, but you have to live here in the heart of New York City.
Yeah.
You would probably want to, put something to the side of your head, or you'd start drinking so bad because it's not you.
Right.
Our surroundings, build who we are. Yeah. You can't just go, hey, I'm from New York City, and I'm going to go out to Oklahoma and be a cattle farmer. You don't know the ass end of a cow from anything. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think because in the military, you experience that. In the military, when I went to basic training, you're taking 50 guys in a platoon, and nobody's from the same place, and attitudes and personalities clash and so on and so forth. And you start seeing this, but then when they start punishing you, because in the military, mass punishment is the rule of the day. If one person screws up, everybody gets punished. Yeah. For the first 4 weeks of basic training, of an 8-week basic training, no matter what it is, everybody got punished. And then you had to start learning to police and helping each other, where at the beginning, nobody was helping anybody.
Yeah.
And everybody had a freaking derogatory nickname for everybody. Whatever something you did or something you said, that nickname sticks with you. And they called me Big Mike in basic training because I was 6'4", 145 pounds. I was a stick.
Yeah, you were.
So they gave me the name the opposite of what they were looking at. Like we had Big Tiny, and Big Tiny was one of the biggest dudes I've ever seen. He was like 6'9", and they called him Big Tiny, and I was Big Mike, and that's how they talk. And in the military, you never call each other by your first names. It's whatever's on your name tag.
Oh.
And you'll see that, or like when I worked as a civilian and they knew my name and I was ex-military, and somebody that was military, they called me by my last name. And my commander goes, "Who are you talking to?" And they go, "The MWR director." "Oh, is that your last name?" He goes, "Oh, you were in the military?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh," and it's just kind of weird. And that's like in the Asian countries, they don't know any better. That's how they were raised, generation after generation, and trying to get people. Now, I will tell you that in Korea, only place I've ever seen this, we would drive across all these farm fields to get to where I worked, and it was where we lived. To get a good apartment and not some old dumpy thing, we had to live about 25, 26 miles away, which was okay. But sometimes you like to go through the fields and just drive just to relax instead of getting on the freeway. And then one day, all these bulldozers were out there. And I'm going, what the heck are these guys doing? And they are ripping and shredding all these farm fields apart. And then a year later, there's a city sitting there.
Oh, really?
And what the government does, this was like 18 miles outside of Seoul.
Yeah.
That has 25 million people.
Mm-hmm.
So to get people out of the city, the country contracts these construction companies to build a city. And they, instead of like back in the olden days, they started building houses and they said, "Hey, we need a road." And then the road goes like this all the way through the city around buildings. It's crazy. So they build the buildings, they build the infrastructure from the plumbing to the subway system to a train system to all this stuff. They build all this stuff. And then they bring in other construction people to build high rises after the infrastructure is all done. And the infrastructure took about a year. And then about a year later, you go through there and you're going, what the F? And then they put it out and they're saying, hey, there's affordable housing here. And if you live here and your family, you get free transportation on the subways and all that kind of stuff. And that's to get part of that 25. And then all of a sudden the city within another year has 200,000 people living in it and growing. Wow. And that's the only place in the world I've seen a country actually build a city to get people out of a city. And then they just started popping up all over that area. Oh, and wow. It's crazy. I couldn't imagine they come and they say, hey, you know what? There's too many people in Chicago. And so we're going to go down outside of Peoria, out there in those farmlands, and we're going to build another city to get these people out of there.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's you don't fathom that. But in other countries, they actually do that. China's big about that because they're, what, 1 billion people or whatever. It's crazy. Yeah, but those people only live in certain areas. And it's because we went to Siam and they actually built an airport next to an old airport. And the only thing you could do in the new airport was depart. So when you get off a plane, like we did, we were going to Italy. We took China Eastern because it only costs $430 round trip from Korea to Rome, but you had to make one stop in China. So we stopped in Shanghai, And so we pull up. I go, wow, that is a gorgeous looking airport. It's huge. And then we got off, and they made us get on a bus with people with guns.
Yeah.
And then they took us to this other area, and we walked in there, and we're going, there had to be 2,000 people in one room. And there's one bathroom, one for male and one for female. And that line wrapped around the room just to go to the bathroom. And I'm just like, going, are you kidding me? We had to stay in there for like an hour and something. And then they called our flight. We got back on a bus with soldiers with guns, drove us back to the new airport. We had to basically single file go in there. And then there was like, hey, there's a Starbucks here in this new thing. And I'm just like going, and then one of each, there's no choices. There's one. If you want a coffee, you're buying it at the price that Starbucks is selling it for. Or if you want a sandwich, you know, and so on and so forth. Plus there's Asian food. They don't call it Chinese food in China. They just call it food.
Yeah.
So then we're sitting there, and then they call our flight, and I go up there, and there's this humongous lady. And when I say humongous, she looked like a bodybuilder, and she was a major in the because I had to look it up on my phone, the rank in the Chinese People's Army.
Yeah.
And she was standing there, and she didn't have one gun. She had two guns and a knife on her waist belt. And you had one civilian lady there doing your ticket, and she just stares at you. And I said, and I seen these ramps. I go, which ramp? Go. I'm guessing the thumb that she put up, I could take that ramp on that side. I said, I don't want to come back to China. Because everything you did, there was somebody with a gun escorting you in places. And then when you're in the facility, every door had somebody with a gun.
Yeah.
I'm in China. I don't want to do this. So we went traveling again. We never took a Chinese airline again.
So they didn't treat you like Tim Walz over there then, is what I'm saying.
No. Yeah. You're nobody. You're just, yeah. This seems like I asked the girl at Starbucks, because Terrie had to get a coffee cup. She collects Starbucks coffee cups everywhere we go in the world.
Yeah.
And trying to talk to them. Yeah, it's not like other countries where they won't talk back to you in English, but they understand what you just said. It ain't like that at all. And you have to point. And you're thinking, because they have pictures. Worst coffee I ever bought. I thought it was just a black coffee. No, it was some god awful thing. And I paid like $14 for it, when it probably on the outside costs you less than $1, you know, because it's at the airport. So yeah, we had a lot of experiences with traveling and just watching other cultures and stuff like that. So that now I'm going to totally go on another direction, because I got my notes. There's a big question going around on YouTube and TikTok, and that's, is masculinity dead? Okay. I thought it was. And how does it affect the dating world? It's a big thing going around.
Oh, yeah.
It was on the news. It was on Fox. It was on CNN. It was all over the place. And it just flooded the internet, asking women and men, you know, is it hard to be a guy in today's society, where if you treat a woman, I'm just speaking on the man side, because I don't know what it feels like to be a woman. And trust me, ladies, I don't understand women. 64 years, ain't figured them out yet.
Right.
Okay. And that's probably a good thing because there's a code. You've heard of man code. There is a woman code, trust me.
Right.
So they're asking people, and one lady said, I went out with this guy, and they said, why did you say yes? Well, he was a good looking guy, and he said all the right things. But we went to dinner. He took me to a very nice restaurant, and when it was time to pay, he looked at me, and she goes, and of course I looked at him, and her thing, she goes, I looked at him like, hey, you asked me out. I ain't paying for jack. Okay. And I'm guessing that's the rule. Whoever asked who out, that person should pay. There's this thing that says, hey, a man should pay for everything. Then certain women go, wait a minute. I don't need a man to pay for nothing.
Right.
I go out with a guy and it's 50-50, or I'm going to pay for it because they have the means to do that. And they're not going to be controlled by a man buying him dinner. I'm going, it's only dinner. Put your women's lip thing and stick it back in your purse or your handbag or your wallet if you carry a wallet. So she said he paid for it. When the guy brought it back, and she goes, I just so happened to look down, and it had his mother's name on the credit card. So he paid for dinner with his mommy's credit card.
Right.
And she said, I seen that. I don't want nothing to do with it. She goes, yeah. She goes, that was after he paid. She goes, this ain't going to work out. I'm going to take a cab home. So the question was, is masculinity dead? All right. Is chivalry dead? Do you, and I want to hear this from the ladies in the chat too. Is it still acceptable for a man to open up a car door for a woman, or open up a door when you're going into a restaurant, or say sir or ma'am, because of all the pronouns now going around? The lucky thing for me is I'm not ever will I be attracted or get involved with somebody. I'm 64 and I see guys dating 24-year-olds. There's a reason why the 24-year-old's dating you.
Yeah.
Okay. And you probably have established yourself. You've made your money, or you're making your money, and you have more to offer. And that's just certain women. Not all women have a golden shovel and a golden pick looking for somebody, right?
Right.
Some people actually fall in love, get together because they fell in love with somebody. But that wasn't what they were asking here. And it was like 82% of the men surveyed, they surveyed 100,000 men. 82% of them says no. And this is just men. If I ask a woman out, I'm paying for it.
Right.
Okay. But with women, it was almost 50-50 on if you went out with a guy, would you either be obligated to pay, basically go Dutch on your first, second, or whatever dates, or how many dates before you feel comfortable with saying, hey, let me pay for it this time? And that came out to 50-50.
Wow.
Okay. 100,000 women that they asked. Okay. So I just want to know for people, oh, look, there's Creekside Maple.
Yeah.
Is it okay if you're going out with somebody for the first time because you don't know where it's going? I mean, yeah, you asked them out, then you go there and you sit down and a guy tells you his life story in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I've gone out with people and I've heard the horror story in 30 minutes or the question, so what do you do for a living? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, one girl said, well, how much does that pay? Right then, the thing went click. See this person again. Okay. Because she's fishing me for information, whether for her to make a decision for herself.
Right.
Okay. And it was based on money. Let's see. Let me go down here. Hey, Ridge Life. There's Tim. Norwegian Homestead. How are you doing? Our friend Norway.
I can tell you what, it got kind of bad. See, I went to college late. I went to college. I think I was like 30.
Yeah.
Whenever I went to college, and I was working. I was framing houses and going to college at the same time, and so I got, even back then. That was in the 90s. Even back in the 90s, at college, I got grief for holding the door open for some of the ladies at college. Like when I'd go through a door, I would hold the door open.
Right.
And a buddy of mine, it was kind of weird because a buddy of mine started college at the same time, and he got really in trouble. I mean, he was at one, because he was so polite that he would not leave the door if there was somebody coming. He would just keep holding it, and
Right.
he caught so much flack for that from the girls at the time for holding the door for him. And this was, like I said, back in the 90s. And so I think it started a while back, but it's really gotten bad, really bad lately. Now, my wife, she likes the door open for her. She really does. She likes all that stuff. I know Joey and Ginger, Joe Fix It For You. Joey will hold the door for everybody. I mean, he will hold it for any woman that gets in his vehicle. He's going to be right there at the door, opening and shutting the door and stuff like that. So, but in today's society, it's actually really hard. You almost have to wait, because you don't know if you're going to offend someone doing that.
Right.
Because there are so many people nowadays that will, and now by nowadays, I mean from the 90s to now, that will be offended because they're like, I go my own door, I can do my own thing,
Right.
And but whenever you talk about masculinity, I think that a lot of that is guys are actually afraid of women now. They really are. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys are afraid of them because nowadays you have to have somebody else. You can't be with one alone. You have to have someone, like someone else around, because you've seen all the litigations and different things like that.
Yeah.
And so guys have gotten afraid of women. They really have. And I'm so glad I don't have to date now. I couldn't do it. I just have to not even want to do it. And people I know some of the people out in the chat have dated, I mean, I've seen, I've seen Tim going through it, at Ridge Life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't even imagine it in today's world. I'm glad we're established, and like said, Christine said, we're never getting a divorce, but she might be a widow. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure Terry went into the bathroom and got purdied up because she has something to say, don't you?
Well, I was going to say the whole thing about gentlemen and everything. When we went on our first date, we took my car and I drove. But when we went to the gas station, he got out and pumped my gas and paid for it. And that was immediately, oh, wow, this is a good guy. So, yeah, that won me over. I'm all about men being gentlemen. I don't understand the whole. I'm independent and I don't want somebody to hold a door for me. That's polite. That's not
Yes, polite.
Anything other than that.
So they don't see just half your face.
Yeah, exactly, Terry. And I think,
But isn't it more of your home raising, as we say in the country? That I hear it all the time. That boy ain't got no home raising, or that girl ain't got no home raising. Isn't parenting today a lot different than when we were kids or kids before us, where morals, or hey, nowadays it's like because I can only speak my son raising his kids. Just let them learn. They'll learn. It's okay.
Yeah, they don't learn unless you teach them.
Don't stick your finger in the fan, and then all of a sudden panic attacks, and your baby to the point where, hey,
right.
I did it, so I bet you won't do that again. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think a lot of it is parenting, where Generation X were so freaking independent. Then you had the latchkey kids,
right.
And then they had to raise themselves because it took two parents to raise. And then those latchkey kids started having kids. So how you parent is really the next generation of society. So now the kids that are adults grew up on the internet, on a phone in their hand. That's why now you don't spank your kids, you take their cell phone, and then you have to take them to a psychologist because you mentally screwed them up, because you took their lifeline, and they can't have face-to-face conversations with people. Oh, we don't call. And I bet you if you took all the companies, and say, how many people made phone calls versus they just sent a text message? That's conversation now for these kids.
Exactly.
My kids grew up, and I find out, hey, we're going to have a sleepover. Oh, okay. And then I come to find out, it ain't just a bunch of guys sleeping at Joe's house. It is girls and guys. Because when I was growing up,
that don't happen.
Boy, there was a belt being swung.
Sure.
My mom would have found that out. You went over and slept next to a bunch. No, that ain't gonna happen. Or if my sisters did it, boy, they'd get the whooping of their lives if my mom ever found that out. So, is it the kids' fault that they don't know how to date or interact? And now you can just swipe right, or left, whatever that thing is. I think left is wrong and right is right, or whatever. And then it sends a message to the person, hey, this guy swiped, and you go, oh, yeah, no. That's dating. That's what we're doing now.
Yeah. Well, you talked about latchkey kids. We were latchkey kids, but it wasn't because we were raised by a single parent. We were latchkey because mom and dad both worked. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we got off the bus, we rode the school bus. And when we got off the bus, we just went to the house and lifted the little paint can that was next to the porch and grabbed the key and went in, and because it was under the paint can, and, went to the house, and, we were on our own for a while until mom and dad got home and stuff like that. So, but you hit on something there. You talked about people don't know what to do because they're home raising and things. Well, that's true, but also there's the just they don't know how to do, how to be gentlemen, how to be like the grandkids. Okay. I try to teach them every time I see them. I try to teach them, and maybe it is, our daughter and her husband who have, not, and they come from, mom and dad house. Maybe it is, but they will walk through a door and they will slam it right in whoever's right behind them's face. They will just let it go and not even think about it. And I have tried and tried and tried to get them past that. I watched their mom scolding them about that same thing all the time. And I don't know if it's because they don't get spanked. They never have. My grandkids have never, because their mom and dad don't believe in any of that. So they never got any of that. They've always been scolded. Every once in a while, their Xbox taken away. Every once in a while, their phone taken away and stuff like that. But they've never actually had a spanking.
Right.
So since they've never actually had a spanking, even though mom and dad tell them over and over and over again, don't do that, there's really no repercussion for it. There's not. Those who don't, think must feel. Those who don't, don't think about other people must feel. That's the way it was with us. Yeah. There's no way we would slam the door in my mom's face, or my dad coming through the door behind us. We wouldn't have slammed the door in his face.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that it's because nobody's really feeling anymore.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So I think whenever that went away, that's when a lot of everything else kind of went by the wayside, even though you have all these people that say that it ruined us by having our tail end, worn out.
Yeah.
And it didn't. I think I'm telling you, a lot of the best folks I know grew up just like that, because they understand. But I don't know where we went. We went wrong right after that generation. We just
I will tell you that I can count on one hand how many times raising two boys that I had actually whooped one of my boys, and I can take a thumb away. Right. One, my son and his buddy went to the neighbor's house. We lived in Germany, and took a piece of gravel and started drawing on a guy's car. It was a brand new BMW 745. Okay. And they were drawing, and the guy came out and seen them, and he grabbed both of them. He knew where they lived. And they rang our doorbell, and he brought me out there. And I'm just like going, are you kidding me? So I paid for a $7,000 paint job.
Yeah.
I wore that little boy's butt out, but I did it right there in front next to the car, because he could speak already. And he got the whooping of his life. He didn't get another whooping, because after that, I could just look at him. I don't care if you're in a restaurant, you're at a store, or anything, and I would just look at him. And I could just, at the beginning, I said, do you want a whooping? And his little butt puckered up, and like a frog standing up, And after that, after he got a little bit older, I could just look at him, and they would stop. My other boy, Kevin, he got 3 whoopings. But the hardest thing that I've ever done, and a doctor told me this, I would come home and their mom would say, "Hey, this is what happened." And it would be, she'd always do it at dinner time. And I'd say, "Go in the bathroom and put your hands on the sink and wait for me."
Mm-hmm.
And you could hear him in there crying. And I would finish dinner and then I would walk in there. And he goes, "Please, Daddy, please." And I'm just going, I said, "Son," we'd talk about it and they'd think at the beginning, they thought it was over with. "Oh, we talked about this." And then I found out that one swat with my hand on their buttocks, and if it hurt your hand, it hurt them. I was never one of those parents that just started whooping like, you were roping cattle. I've never done that. And a doctor told me that, a psychologist said that was more devastating mentally to your children than actually whooping them. And I said, "Well, good. But they learned from that. Now they did other things crazy and stuff like that when they became teenagers. And guys, I will never want to raise a teenager again. You can give me little kids, but don't give me no teenagers. Them kids, they're crazy."
That's the thing that, was it Mikey that drew on the car?
Yeah.
Yeah. Austin, same thing. When he was little, got a rock, and his dad had a 74 Chevy Corvette that he'd been working on, just had it painted. And he went out, same thing, drawing on the car. He was proud of himself. He was doing his letters.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. When you get away from, for every action, there should be a reaction, and you should learn from that. That's basically what discipline should be now, or should have always been. It's kind of like, don't touch the stove, it's hot. And they touch it. And they go, "Ah." So they had a reaction to the action. And people learn from that.
Yeah.
More so than sitting there. Again, my daughter-in-law, love her to death, reasoning with a 2-year-old. Okay? Instead of doing an action, a reaction to the action, it is sitting there and I could feel my blood pressure boil listening to somebody trying to reason
With a 2-year-old.
2-year-old.
Whose brain is not developed enough to understand what reason.
Yeah, they're just like getting dizzy. You know how you got dizzy when your parents were yelling at you? You're all like, "What the hell?" I'd rather you just go ahead and get the belt out so we can get this over. This talking stuff is making me sick.
I grew up in a time, and I know you did too. Okay, we're not that far apart in age and stuff, but I grew up in a time whenever you could be paddled in the classroom by the teacher. You could be paddled in the office by the principal or the vice principal.
Remember when your parents had to sign that letter?
Yep.
For them to whoop the crap out of you?
Yep. You could be paddled by the bus driver. I don't know how many times the bus driver pulled over on the side of the road, got us out of the bus, and busted us on the side of the road, and then put us back in the bus, and then we went on home. You could be in our house. Dad was the main discipliner, just like a lot of people, we're talking about. But Mom, she would kind of, it was a really weird situation. And I'm going to tell you right now that I really don't think it hurt me as a person. Okay. As a person, I think I grew into the person that I should have been, and I'm glad I turned into. Okay. So I'm not going to cry and say, "Oh, I've got trauma from, back whenever I was a kid and stuff," because I don't have any trauma whatsoever. But I remember Mom, she would swat me once with a fly swatter, because that was her little thing. And then she would say, "Go sit in that chair right over there."
Yeah.
And it was in the corner of the kitchen. And Dad wasn't home from work yet. So she said, "Go sit in that chair and wait on Dad." And Dad would come in and Mom would just say, "What Johnny did." And little Johnny was sitting over there in the chair, and Dad would just, he'd just go, "Okay, come on." And he would, he liked a belt, his belt. And so, yeah, but I'm telling you, I learned so many things, but then I had daughters, and one daughter, she was like me. You'd spank her and she was defiant about it and stuff like that, because me, I got kind of jaded to it after a while, I guess you'd call it, because I was not a model child. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I grew into the adult I needed to be.
All right.
But I had one daughter that I think I only had to swat her one time. And that one time was enough, because I could do just like you. I could look at her. I could just look at her sideways, and she would start crying right then. And I never had to do anything else. Now, she did raise the grandsons that will slam the door in your face. And they, a punishment for them is, like I said, taking the Xbox away for a while or something like that. So, I don't know.
It's like one time my son told me to get out of his room. He came home from school. And everything I bought him, I took out of that room, put it on the back of the flatbed, and took it to the storage building.
Yeah.
And locked it up. And he's going, "What happened? What did I said, "Hey, this is your room." Okay. I said, "You should lucky you're not in a tent outside by the barn living, because you have you have a tent that you bought with your own money, and you're living out there. You can live here, but I'm thinking you need to go to the Walmart and get you a blanket, because those blankets are mine. All this was mine. I paid for all this stuff." And then I took the door off his room because he slammed it.
Yeah.
Took the little pin out. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's my door. I don't like doors being slammed." So I took the door off. Came back, and he had gone and got a sheet and tacked the sheet up there. Right? I said, "Well, that's fine. That's your sheet." Okay. I said, "But I think those nails are mine because you took them out of the shed." I said, "But I'll let you have that." And I mean, those are teaching points where kids nowadays feel entitled. This is my phone. Dude, if you had to pay for a plan on your phone at 15 or 14 years old, you couldn't afford a phone.
Right.
I just read the thing the other day. It was in Texas, I think in Waco. Some woman, her 3 kids chased her into the street with knives. They were trying to kill her.
This is their mother.
Because she shut the Wi-Fi off.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking, what in the world? How does this happen? How do kids go from, I don't have Wi-Fi, so I'm going to kill my mom?
That's when I would tell Child Protective Service, take them.
They've all been charged. They have all been
charged all, and they were like
with
teenagers.
Attempted murder, yes.
Yeah.
They were 14, 15, and 16 or something like that. They were older. They weren't young. It wasn't like they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and like I said, it's just not, it's not the same world. It's not the same. I mean, I wish they would bring it back. I really do. I wish that would be one of those things that came back. I wish that, you could bust your kid's butt and not have to worry about it, because
It's
I
an
tell you
addiction.
what, there's a lot that need it. There
The
is a
social
lot.
media and everything has become an addiction to these kids.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
not right, and I don't think that young kids need to be online
Yeah.
at all.
No, I don't really think, this phones in school thing, and they and the parents will justify it by saying they need to be able to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
They need to be able to get a hold of me whenever they need to. So
Yeah.
and that's the parents. And
Why
you're
do
like,
they need to get a hold of you during school
There's
hours?
a phone at the school. If there's an emergency, you go to the office and you get the phone. That's what we did.
What are you calling
So,
for?
I'm like,
I need to tell my mom that no, go back to class. That doesn't sound important to us. You're not using the phone. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Hey, so the final thing is, and I know we're over the hour, but who cares? Is the Doge put out a thing, and it says they asked people on a survey, what are your thoughts on Doge stimulus checks? So far, the Doge website, they have saved in real time $130 billion. Now they've stopped contracts, okay, and those people will never get money again. So we don't, and they've been getting it every year. Those people that they've stopped on these contracts will never be given money again. So that's in the overall. But in real time, they have stopped $130 billion, which according to them would be $807.45 per taxpayer. Okay. Now you get screwed if you're filing jointly, because that's one taxpayer. Okay. And if they got to $1 trillion, which they think they can, that would be a $2,500 stimulus check for each taxpayer. And if they got to $2 trillion, that would be $5,000 per taxpayer, according to who's paying taxes.
Yeah.
Right. So they wanted to know what were your thoughts on this survey, and they sent it out to everybody that they could think of. And I'm just like going, holy smokes. If you look at how many people pay taxes, to include those guys who are making billions of dollars and they're paying millions of dollars to lawyers to get them out of paying taxes, that's a lot of people. And in saying that, my thoughts are when people say, oh, billionaires are not paying their fair share, and a lot of these people are Congress people and stuff like that. Guys, you wrote the tax code. You put the loopholes in there. They're just using what you gave them not to pay you. Now, would I like to pay $1 billion? Okay. Or would I like to pay $50 million if I made that much money? Well, of course, I'd rather pay somebody to get me out of the $1 billion and just pay the $1 million. You know what I mean? So the people that are whining the most are the people who control the tax code and who can change the tax code. And everybody's heard me say that. Page 1, this is the tax code. Flip the page. Everyone in America must pay 15% of their total income. Flip the page. End of tax code. What do you need 1,000-something pages in a tax code when you could have 3 pages? That's including a title page. This is the tax code.
Yeah.
Why? And if you made it so simple, everybody has to pay that. I don't care how much money you made, you're paying 15%. There's no loopholes. There's no, hey, get out of jail free cards. And maybe they should have a surplus. And if you don't pay it, you're going to prison.
So,
End of story.
so Bill's saying billionaires don't make any income. Billionaires pay almost all the taxes in this country.
They do.
Yep.
If they pay almost all of it. I mean, you know, that's a good talking point and stuff like that. But they pay. There's a lot of money paid by the.
If you took all the billionaires and millionaires and you see if they paid 15%, and then you took the rest of America that can pay taxes, they wouldn't even come close to what these guys would pay or should be paying.
Right.
Okay. It's because of hiring lawyers and paying hundreds and thousands of dollars to get them out of it is why they're not paying their fair share. And guess what? They wrote the code. So stop bitching about it, guys in Congress and the Senate. Change it. They don't want to change it because they're using the same loopholes.
So what I think, what I really think is we need instead of having an income tax, I think we need to just have a consumption tax. I really think that if you purchase things, you're taxed on the things that you purchased. You're not taxed on your income, because
Right.
the income tax was not part of the Constitution or anything like that.
Mhm.
It came about much later. But if you consume, so everybody buys things. Everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, you end up buying things. You pay taxes on the things that you purchase and your income, you know, so people who make more money have more purchases, they pay more tax. You know, it's just common sense.
Right.
The other thing that really chaps me is whenever a lot of these states, whenever you were talking about it earlier, whenever they do away with the income tax for the state, what they do is they roll that to the property owner. So it goes to the property taxes. So instead of having income tax, it goes to property taxes. I really don't think that there should be property taxes on property that you have purchased and you own. I really don't think that they should continuously just hammer you with tax after, and every year you could lose your property. Every single, if you don't think you can lose your property, just don't pay your taxes.
Yeah. See what
It'll
happens.
go away. Your property that you spent $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for, whatever, it'll just go away.
Yeah. And
to me, I just think that the tax should be just on the things that you buy. I don't, you know, they'd have to tax it more. You know, maybe everything that you purchase might have a 25% tax on it or something like that. I don't know.
Mhm.
But still yet, that should be the tax. If you don't want to pay tax, don't buy anything.
Right. Well, see, and that's what happens with states, because there's 10 states now that doesn't have an income tax. Like if you go to Texas, you don't have to pay income tax. However, they make their money off of consumption
And property tax.
and property taxes. Okay. That's where they make their money off that stuff. Plus, they've lowered the tax on companies and stuff like that to bring them into the state and giving them so many benefits because, and people, we lost some people because of tariffs. Okay. You have to understand the purpose behind that. And they made it loud and clear. Equal the tariff that the other country is making us pay to make it even. Okay. And maybe that country will say, oh, whoa, let's negotiate this and bring it back down. Oh, that's great. And that's great for everybody.
Right.
The second part of that is you put tariffs in place so it's cheaper for the company that's importing to open up something in the States, do all their manufacturing, assembly, and all that, and hire Americans to do that. And then you don't have to pay the tariff. That's the thing. Everybody's so bent out of shape And every country does this. So
Right.
if you're pissed hurt and you live in a country that you're paying this tariff, you do it too.
Right.
That's how your country makes millions and billions of dollars, is on tariffs. Okay. If you don't make Captain Crunch in Canada, okay. I seen a comedian say this. He was from Canada, because they only get one Captain Crunch, and that's the original, and they're being ripped off with, the peanut butter crunch and the crunch berries and all this other stuff. Guys, you're paying a tariff for a US company to bring that in there. And the way it goes is Captain Crunch pays a tariff to the country of Canada or Mexico or wherever. Okay? He pays it. The person on the other side is having to buy the Captain Crunch from the American, is paying what he paid in tariff plus what he wants to make off that, and then he passes it on to you. That's how tariffs work. That's how companies make money.
That's why you have value-added tax in
Europe. Some country. Europe has that VAT tax, where if it wasn't made in this country, you as the consumer, they show you flat out, this is what you're paying in the tariff. Okay, I want to buy a Schwinn bicycle. They don't make them in Germany, let's say. So here's the tariff on a bike. So you're gonna pay what the guy wants plus the country tax. It's all in one. They don't ring stuff up. When Germany sells something like a can of beans, whatever's on that shelf is the tax is already added into that can of beans. I wish we would do that. Okay. And the taxes are all added into whatever you buy, instead of going, okay, this is what you're doing now, here's your tax underneath there. Just tell the people the can of bean costs $1.20. Okay. And your tax is added into it. That's what they do. So now I bought this Schwinn bicycle, and then they said, oh, and by the way, it was made in Illinois or wherever, and here's the VAT. And sometimes the VAT can be almost half of what that bicycle cost. Yeah. Now, why they do that is to say, oh, shoot, but if I buy that German Fahrräder over here, bicycle, and it's made by a German company, I don't pay the VAT. I'm going to buy that bike. That's what they want you to do. So that the Germans can make more bikes, and there's not a need to import Schwinn bikes.
Exactly.
That's what we're trying to do as a government, is to influence $500 million, okay, $1 billion, all these companies that are coming in. Hyundai Corporation is opening a steel plant in Louisiana, and they're spending like $1 billion on that, hiring American workers to make the steel, because it costs too much if in the tariffs to export it to made steel, export it, and then pay another tariff to bring it back into the States.
Yeah.
So people stop getting wrapped around the hate and stop listening to this people. And the short game is going to be painful. It's the long game that we're playing for.
What they're doing is they're ripping the Band-Aid off. And I'd like to tell people that's what you're feeling, is they're ripping the Band-Aid off. But I wanted you to look at a comment. I'm looking here in the chat. I see Cottonwood Ranch made a comment there.
Yeah.
And they said they have travel advisories on the U.S. won't be visiting anytime soon when we are looked upon as an enemy. I can tell you, as far as the people of the U.S., we don't look at Canadians as enemies at all.
No.
Not at all. Some of my very best friends are Canadians, and we love the Canadian people.
Yeah.
The thing with Canada and the U.S. is the tariffs are they're just they're trying to do reciprocal tariff.
Yeah.
They're just trying to say, okay, you charge us this much tariff, so we're just going to reciprocate and charge that much tariff on you guys.
Right.
And that's it.
Why can't it be equal?
So then they go, so what they're trying to do, they're trying to put, but they're still trying to put Canadians in detention centers. No, I don't.
Who's saying
Where
this?
are you getting that?
Cottonwood Ranch.
No, they're
No.
not.
Absolutely not.
That's crazy.
No, we're not putting Canadians in detention centers. If there's Canadians going into detention centers, it's because they're illegal aliens, maybe, but not, no.
See, here's what's happening. I'm going to tell you. When you grow up in certain countries, and since you were just knee-high to a grasshopper, they have told you that these certain people are evil. These people are wrong. These people should die. These people should do this. And you're grown up, and they teach you this. This is your parents. This is your priest, your wherever you're from, and you keep hearing this. And they do this in North Korea a lot. And we found that out when we lived over there. And that's what you do. And then you meet them, you go, whoa, you don't have horns growing out your head, right? Or you don't have this, or you don't have that. And you're not my religion. And I was told since I was a baby, I should kill you, or all these things. And we hear these things, and it's evil and it's bad. And then you find out, and then you won't accept, hey, they were teaching me wrong things. And when we spread stuff that aren't true, and we're believing the hype because people want you to think this way to get you on their side, and you're supposed to be a smart, intelligent person, and you're believing this garbage because it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about how much money the government can make off of you. Because even if they lowered the tariffs to 10%, Canada pays 10% for everything they ship in. We pay 10% everything that's going north. Okay? You're not making crap. Your government is still making money. And that's what it's all about, is how much the federal government, both Canada and America, can make to pay for all their little special projects and income and blah, blah, blah. And so you as the consumer, you may be saying, okay, we're not paying as much for this because the tariffs went down to 10%. But guess what? Every time something goes up, and it goes up quickly, then look at, hey, they fixed it. Tell me how fast it went back down to where it used to be. 9 times out of 10, it will never go back, because the stockholders that made the money when it rose, the prices, don't want to go back down. And they're telling their CEOs, we're not losing money. You'll be out of a freaking job. So they're not going to do it. But people, come on. We are not putting Canadians in prison for some arbitrary whatever. If you came over and you committed a crime and you're in a detention center, that's on you. Okay? And your country don't want to negotiate to get you back because, I don't know, you drunk drived in the States and you killed 2 people and blah, blah, blah. Okay? We do that, or we don't do that because of the severity of your crime in other countries and stuff like that. Our State Department will negotiate to get you back, but you still committed a crime. But I don't know I've never seen on any news agency, and I watch a lot of news from a lot of places, okay, to compare to see what's going on. Where we're targeting Canadians and stuff like that.
We're not.
Now, if you're humping drugs down or something like that, you deserve to be in prison. Okay, but we're not arbitrarily doing that. Now, we're trying to ship you out. You know what I mean? We got a nice hotel down in El Salvador. Beautiful place. Nice and clean. 40 bunks per cell. I mean, it's great. One toilet. Hey, it's a great place. That's where we're trying to send people. And Guantanamo, if we're going to hold you over for trial, if you're an illegal. Okay? But that's been on hold until the 14th of April. So we can't ship nobody out right now until some lonely federal judge who got in place by a certain person is doing it. Can you believe it? There's been 17 injunctions already on President Trump. Right? 17. Nobody in the last 4 presidents had 17. Between his first tour of duty and this tour of duty, he's had a total of 64, and nobody can come close to it. And it's just certain people trying to fight the system. So, whatever it is. But if Doge can find this money, and I don't know why certain people, I'm trying to talk in code, certain people would want to fight fraud, waste, and abuse. Is it because they have their hand in the cookie jar? Because what we're finding out is the last administration gave Stacey Abrams $2 billion.
Yeah.
$2 billion. And then they gave it to another sub-entity, and then that one gave it to another one. In fact, they found that it went to 4 different entities, while each entity that passed it down took their share, their cut of the money.
Yeah, that was
And nobody explained to the federal government where that money went.
That was $100 application for $2 billion to give electric appliances to poor folks in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't actually give any. And what they were doing is they were using it. She gave out some electric appliances. Don't get me wrong. She gave out some, but it was for votes. And she was using this money to say, okay, the certain administration is giving away these electric appliances, and they're really good and stuff like that. So they were giving away some electric appliances, but not nearly $2 billion worth of electric appliances. So that money
got paid.
Kept getting funneled. Yeah. And that's the type of thing that they're finding right now. But I was looking up this person who was detained, this Canadian, coming across the Mexico border. That a Canadian businesswoman who's coming across the Mexico border got detained down there, and it's because they didn't have a visa to be in the U.S. or to stay in the U.S. And they went to the airport and they tried to book a flight to travel from in the U.S. to Canada. So since they were grabbed, at the airport, they were detained at the border, and then they got in, then they were grabbed at the airport, and because they were trying to fly as an illegal alien to Canada from the U.S.
Right.
So, yeah, there was some unfortunate stuff about that and everything, but it wasn't that they were targeting her because she was Canadian.
No, definitely not.
It's It's not a thing. They're not just, okay, they're Canadian. Let's target them because of this. It
Well,
was, you can
she had
imagine.
that was revoked because the company she was working for had hemp in their products, and so they revoked the visa.
Right. So just saying, I mean, and so it's not, I mean, I don't know what your news is telling you up there that the U.S. is targeting the Canadian folks and, you know, we don't want you and stuff like. We love Canadian folks. We do. We really do. Some of my best friends are Canadians. I go to a race at Norwalk, Ohio every once in a while, and we play the Canadian national anthem and the U.S. and you know, the American national anthem at the race, because a lot of Canadians come down for that and stuff like that. So it's not that we're hostile to Canadians at all. None, zero. Yeah. Just like we're not hostile to any nationality here. I mean, we're not hostile to folks. And I can tell you here's one thing that I want to share before we get off here or anything like that. Yeah. The way that the folks on the right, the conservative right, whenever we don't agree with something, we just use our checkbook to not agree with something or our vote. That's it. We don't go out and damage things. We don't go out and burn things. We don't go out and, you know, do things like that. Bud Light, good example. We did not do anything to Bud Light other than just not buy any Bud Light anymore. That's all we did. That was our protest. We just didn't buy Bud Light. Yeah. Now, in contrast, this Tesla thing where everybody's marking on them and just destroying Teslas and Tesla dealerships and everything else, that's unhinged. That is not the way that folks on the right would do things. We would just not buy a Tesla. That's all we would do. We wouldn't go down there and protest it. We just wouldn't buy one.
And here's the thing, we have a lot of crazies on the right too.
Yeah.
Okay. But they're not going out and doing the things it's like somebody said that they believe that these people are being paid and recruited to do stuff like this. People with money are doing it. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know why they would do that. But I do know that if you break the law, I don't care where you're from, you should go to jail in the country you committed the crime in.
I gotta go meet it.
Meet who? What?
Granddaughter's mom up at the railroad tracks to grab lessons.
Okay, Terry's got to take off, get the grandkids. But I just, when you make a blanket statement, make the statement with facts, because as soon as that was said, Terry looked it up, you looked it up, and you got the whole truth and not just we're detaining Canadians. Yeah. I mean, that's irresponsible in my mind, just to make a blanket statement. And that's what our Congress people on one side of the aisle are doing. They're just making blanket statements.
Yes.
No facts, no nothing. And if you hear it enough, you will start to believe that stuff. Okay. It hurts my heart that people, intelligent would actually not do their research and not play into the hype and want to fix this rather than to make it worse.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing, you gain nothing by making it worse. That's why people don't get along. That's why people unsubscribe to each other. That's why people, this is not the way I think, and they close it off. Yeah. But what is the real truth? Find the real truth, educate yourself, and then say, hey, this is what happened. And oh, by the way, she couldn't do it because her visa was revoked because the company did this. And then instead of doing that, she still came into the States through the southern border and tried to jump on a plane and leave, and they caught her. Because once it's revoked and you show your passport because you're leaving the country and it goes beep, beep, beep. Oh, that visa's been revoked. And that's when problems happen. So, we got the internet on a little box. Use it,
And yeah, be careful what you use though, because they've changed so much stuff. Don't use Wikipedia, because Wikipedia can be basically anybody can change what the meaning of something is through Wikipedia.
Yeah, that is true too.
I mean, I can go in there and change things on Wikipedia, and that's dangerous. But yeah, we're not, like I said, they said Wanda Henry said, it's not the people, it's the government that scares them, our government.
Oh,
and
they scare me.
Our government is, if you're here legally, you have no reason to be afraid. We're not, or anything like that. If you're here legally, it'd be no different than me deciding I wanted to go to another country. If I'm there legally, I probably have not a thing to worry about too much. But if I don't go legally, then yeah, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder the whole time. Let's just put it that way. Also, don't go, and work here in the States. I think that a lot of people think that we're a certain way because they've heard the news say so often that we are a certain way, and we're really not. I tell you, if you come, I don't know how many people. I try to be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay? Nice to everybody. You don't see me shunning people because of their beliefs. I will talk to them about them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With her, rather just at home. I haven't done anything. Still be looking over my shoulder. Well, if you don't do anything illegal in the U.S., you shouldn't have to worry about it. I mean,
because see, I've lived in other countries. I've actually lived in 16 different countries in my lifetime, being part of the military, blah, blah, blah. And I never, in all my years, and then as a civilian, lived in foreign countries, have I ever done anything illegal for me to worry about being arrested or anything like that. If I made sure I had the proper documents, everything before I moved to that country to take a job or whatever the case was. And I never ever can remember a time where I was afeared that I would be arrested or anything like that. And I've lived in some screwed up countries, okay? And the likelihood, but if you're going to do something wrong, it's just, it's kind of like here. You have bad players that got killed by the police or whatever the case was, and everybody went into an uproar. They burnt down cities, all this stuff. And what did it accomplish? It accomplished absolutely nothing. Okay? And it's kind of funny because Trump was part of that in his first term. Nobody got arrested. You don't hear anything on the news. You don't hear nothing. Hey, all these people got arrested, or the FBI used facial recognition and tried to find out who these people were and all this stuff. I don't remember reading anything of people going to jail.
No.
They burnt down freaking cities.
Yeah.
They shot people.
Yeah,
They
they took
blocked
over.
off. They turned a federal building into their headquarters in Washington State. I'm just trying to figure out why we allowed that to happen. Okay, why we allowed that to happen instead of activate your National Guard, put a stop to this garbage, but we let it happen, and we promoted it, and we say these are not people in power. Said these are not people. They're protesting. What do you call hostile protesting?
Mhm.
I mean, how many people do you have to kill to say, hey, this is not protesting? How many buildings have to
Mostly
be
peaceful
burned down?
protests that we had where everything was burning down in the country.
You know, how many people have to block streets? I get it. And I'm just one of those people. You can protest, but when it becomes illegal protesting and we snatch you up and you go, oh, you're a student from another country, send them back home.
Yeah.
We have enough problems. We don't need you to come in here as a student and you're doing this and you're throwing and you're burning and you're doing all this stuff and you're threatening US citizens because they're Jewish or whatever. Okay. Your ass needs to be on a plane quick, fast, in a hurry. We don't need you in here. Go to the University of Moscow and get your education. Okay. Because I'm pretty sure people want to hire a doctor there before they want to hire a doctor from Harvard. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense because you don't want me to do it to be a president or something like that. If you heard an American, if you heard a Korean, so let's say I go to Korea and I punch a Korean out because we're in a bar in a disagreement, it doesn't matter who was right or wrong. I touched a Korean, I would be on a plane and out of that country within 48 hours. Or after I served my time in jail for him, then I would be out and I could never get another visa the rest of my life to go into the country of Korea. Okay. We don't do, we can't do that here. Oh, you murdered somebody. We can't let them send you to prison. We're going to put a stop to it. You guys are, you've killed all these people. You're MS-13. Oh, wait, that's unconstitutional. I thought the Constitution was for people who live here that, citizens and not illegal aliens coming in and murdering people. And a judge says, oh, turn that plane around. These people, no. Okay. It's just a lot of political BS.
Right.
Okay? A lot of political BS to stop things that they already know is wrong. Why you're doing this, I don't know, but it's getting a lot of people on their base riled up because they believe in half freaking truths,
Right.
and not what the truth actually is.
If you really think about the government, is really the only power the government was ever supposed to hold was just basically to secure the borders of the U.S.
Yeah.
And it wasn't supposed to be the all encompassing tentacle that it is. It was supposed to be states' rights, and our national military was the government, which was not to be, wasn't for use on U.S. soil unless we had, foreign entities enter the U.S. and create, a war here on our soil.
Yeah.
But it was to secure the borders, secure all our borders, and that's, and we had Ellis Island. We had people coming in legally. They had to learn our customs. They had to learn our language. They had to learn all these things in order to be incorporated into the U.S. And they had to bring something of value whenever they came. And I don't mean monetarily. I mean, they had to be a way of, bettering our country by
Yeah.
them coming in. Like they had to bring their talents and their things like that with them when they came. But it turned into something, it got bastardized somewhere, and it just became just come in, spit on the country, burn our flags, come in, just basically, don't incorporate anything at all into the American culture. Just, bring all your own baggage with you, et cetera, from where you're from. And let's just turn this country into where you came from, basically. Yeah. And so we're not, just do it the right way. I would do it the right way. If I wanted to move to Canada, I wouldn't just jump, just go and just, scurry across the border and try to, just get a fake number or something somehow and just, go into different hidings and stuff like that. I wouldn't do it. Yeah. I would go through whatever. And if I couldn't do it, I'd just stay here.
Yeah.
I just stay here. I just I've
only been to Canada one time. I went on a hunting trip. We flew up to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then we took vans and we crossed the border. And I mean, granted, where we were going was in the middle of freaking nowhere. I only seen the same 7 people, for a week. Went up there on a bear hunt, and I couldn't back then. I couldn't take anything across the border. Of course, we were bow hunting for black bear, and of course, the ranch that we were going to, or the landowner, he had a bow shop, and everything was Matthews that he carried up there. And we got measured. We did everything. We sighted in our bows. We got him and all that, and then we hunted for 7 days. But that was my only experience going across the border. I did get a 510-pound black bear, by the way.
Good one.
And yeah, that's my only experience in Canada, period. But I would say that the people treated us absolutely. But again, that was their job. If you own a hunting company or whatever like that, you're not mean to your customers. You want them to come back because it was kind of expensive, even back then. That was in the early 80s. And I think I paid back then $3,000 for the hunting trip, but I had to pay to get there. So it cost a little bit more. But yeah, I didn't have a problem up there. I don't have a problem with anybody. I absolutely adore Raquel. I know she's a smart, intelligent woman, just on her background. And I know she has connections here in the States. But, it's hard to stop believing things when you've believed something for so long, and that's kind of my thought, is all these people in the U.S. that are strapped to political slavery. And, and I noticed that a lot of people who woke up and you listen to their testimonial why they switched parties, because the Democratic Party was a totally different party 20, 30 years ago.
Yep.
Was a totally different party. And they finally going, wow, what happened to, because you know what? Terrie is middle of the road conservative. She believes, hey, there's a lot of good things on the left. There's a lot of good things on the right. And that's where Terrie is. And she'll grab her phone and be on that phone or the computer for hours trying to find out what is true and what's not true. and then going from there. I'm not far right. I'm like far right and middle of the road. I'm somewhere in here. Because I believe government should not be in our lives the way they are. They should not be so big and so inflated, and they shouldn't be ripping our own government, ripping us off and taking our tax dollars and buying, sex change operations and telling people on a tropical island to educate them on climate change. You know what I mean? Or I don't believe you should indoctrinate people and because I was in the military for so long, and DEI, you were mandated. You had to sit through this and you had to take a test and all this stuff. And if you did something wrong, left or right of what you were trained in, they could hammer on you. Okay. Because you're not allowed. Because when you're in the military, you work for a democracy. You are not in one, period, end of statement. Okay? You are controlled. You are told what you're going to do, how to think. And if you think different than what policy states, your ass is grass. That's it. Okay? So if you think they have it made by serving in the military and why recruiting went down, these are the reasons why. Now that they've lifted DEI and CRT and all that stuff, and they have gotten rid of it. I mean, how many hours do 1 million something people have to sit on a computer and be brainwashed into a way of thinking? That's over with. Commanders have more time to train their people instead of these millions of hours of training them to think a certain way. Because society, less than 1% of the society believes in this, and that's the direction we're going to go. Why is Trump so popular now with so many people? Because he's ended it. He's not going to have it. You can think what you want to think. You don't have to be controlled like a robot or a bot. You have to think a certain way or you're not socially acceptable in our society. That's why he's so popular. Okay? That's why more Americans than ever voted for one side and left what they grew up on and voted on the other side, because they seen the writing on the wall and how absolutely asinine our country was going. And guys, that's my thoughts for the day. I'm glad you guys came in here. I know we're over 2 hours onto this live, but hey, we said what we had to say. We drank some coffee, guys, and guess what? You guys can come up here anytime you want. Anytime I am live on Mondays and Fridays, you can come up here and, like John, speak your mind. I don't care. Okay? And if people leave because you speak your mind, well, guess what? If I left every channel I didn't believe thought the same way I wouldn't have a lot of people on my channel. So, guys, we want to thank you guys for coming in. Hope you have a very blessed week. Remember, I go live with Jason at White Rock every Tuesday at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time at Sergeant's Talk TV. And then Terry and I are live on Wednesday at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. And then Johnny, you live when?
I'm live every Thursday at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time on or the Homestead Hangout. And then I'm live every other Saturday for Chilling with the Gillums at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. most of the time, whenever I can get to my computer at 7.
Yeah.
But, come on by and hang out with us. We had it last Saturday night, so it's going to be 2 weeks before we do it again. So anyway.
All right. Hey, guys. Hey, remember, be kind to one another. Help somebody in need, and always, always think of that. Guys, we love you. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye.